Today's daf Yomi is Zevachim daf Mem Gimel, Zevachim 43. We're going to start the Mishnah on the bottom of Mem Beis and Beis. Says the Mishnah, Elu Devarim, things which are not going to be liable for pig, liable for kares if you eat it on account of pigel. What are these things? Hakomet. So here, goop. Sheina pigel chal, says Rashi, el davar sheyeshel matirin. The pigel only applies to something that has sheyeshel matirin acherim, that if what allows it to be eaten, but the komets ein acher matirin, nothing else is allowing it to be eaten. Kihu matir as a mincha, that's what allows the mincha to be eaten. And so Rashi says everything in our Mishnah is the same thing. Also the lavona and also kulam. So we go on to the next one. So it's Mishum Pigel, Hakometz, Vakatores. This is the incense. The incense was it has no matir, it's completely burnt. Valavona. The lavona is also what allows the shirayim of the mincha to be in. That was part of the kometz of the mincha. On top of them, Gimel Amid Aleph, Minchas Kohanim, the mincha of the Kohanim, which nothing of it was eaten. And so therefore there was no matir. There was nothing that was allowing it to be in. The Minchas Kohen Mashiach, the Mincha of the Kohen Gadol, which is called the Minchas Chavitin, because it was brought in a frying pan. The Adam, and the blood is also, there's nothing that allows it to be in, or Vanesachim. And we know that the blood is the matir of the offering, and the nesachim habam b'fnei atzmon, and the libations which come on their own. So what are the nesachim habam b'fnei atzmon? She says she has not run b'fnei atzmon, that these are the ones that they were voluntarily offered on their own. So the Torah tells us that every olah and shlamim has to be accompanied by a mincha and a wine libation. This is called the minchas nesachim, the libation mincha. The mincha, this mincha has no avona with it, nor is it kometz taken from it. It's entirely burnt on the altar, even if the owner is not a kohen. So this minchas nesachim can be brought with the animal offering, or it can be brought at a later date. And so, therefore, in addition, a person can bring a nadav, a voluntary minchas nesachim, without first bringing olah shlamim. So this is entirely burnt, and so there's no matirin. So even if it's brought independently, we're going to say it's not subject to pigel since it has no matir. But if it's brought with the olah or the shlamim, then the pigel intent during the avoda of the animal offering will affect the pigel in the mincha as well. And so since the animal is considered the matir of the minchas nesachim, and so therefore it will apply under those circumstances, Rashi says. Tiver Rebbe Meir. The Chachamim Omrim, Af Habayna Behemas, but the Chachamim argue with Rebbe Meir and says, even if the Nesachim are brought with the animal, they're going to say that the pigel does not apply to them. So the Chachamim, so Rebbe Meir says that pigel doesn't apply if they're only if they're brought by themselves, and the Chachamim say even if it's brought with the animal. Rashi says to keep it to Yachol Akriv Nisachim L'Machar, since you could bring it tomorrow. Nimsa Sheina Zevach Matirin, that therefore the carbon is not what allows them to be brought. Elohei Matirin Esatzmo, they are the matir themselves, and so therefore, if you eat them or offer them on the altar, not going to get kares. Log shemen shamatzora. So what about the log of oil of the Rashi says, where the shiara of nechol and the remnants of that oil after they're applied to the mitzvah are eaten. Shimon says, "Ein chayavin mishum pigol." That if you eat that, you're not going to be liable for pigol. And we're going to say that going back a step, if basically if the carbon asham and mitzvah was rendered pigol, the pigol disqualification and the kares punishment do not affect the oil. Rabbi Shimon doesn't hold that the asham blood is the matir of the oil. And so therefore, Rabbi Shimon says you're not liable for pigol. So Meir Omer Chayav and Mishum pigol shedama asham matira. Rabbi Shimon says that Rabbi Meir says you will be chayav for pigol because the blood of the asham will allow it to be permitted. And so now we summarize anything that has a matirin to allow it either for the person or for the mizbeach. You're going to be liable for pigol. Says the Mishnah, Olah, what about a korban olah? Dama matiras b'saro mizbeach. So the blood is what allows the meat for the oil, for the mizbeach, v'oral kohanim, and it's skin for the kohanim. And olah sa'of, and when it comes to the olah of a bird, dama matiras b'saro mizbeach. The blood is what allows its meat for the altar. And chata sa'of, when it comes to the sin offering of the bird, dama matiras b'saro kohanim. The blood is what allows its meat for the kohanim. Parman esrafim usiirim esrafim, as it relates to the bulls that are burnt and the goats that are burnt, dam and matirin ethimurein ukarev. The blood is what allows their innards to be brought. Or Mishimon Omer kol she'enu al mizbeach hachitzon kishlamim. Anything that's not offered up on the outer mizbeach, like carbon shlamim, ein chayavin al mishum pigol. You're not going to be liable for pigol. So Rabbi Shimon is arguing with the last position of the Mishnah. So he says, since all of the halachos of pigol are brought if in the context of shlamim, so therefore we're going to say, according to Rabbi Shimon, they only apply to those karbanos which have the same shlamim characteristics of having the blood going on the mizbeach hachitzon. This excludes, as Rashi tells us, excludes the bulls and the goats that are brought inside the Beis Hamikdash. So Amar Ula, so that says the Gemara, Amar Ula, kometz pigol shehelu agavim mizbeach. Let's say you have this kometz of pigol that you brought on the altar. Paka pigulo mimenu. The pigol will depart from it. Meaning to say, let's say when you did the kmitza, you had the machshava of beyond the time. So therefore the whole korban became pigol. And the kometz was then brought up on the altar. The kometz loses its pigol status. What does that mean? So back to the Gemara. Imacher may validate pigol, because the Gemara explains if others, meaning to say if the burning of the kometz can bring other parts of the korban to a state of pigol, so for sure, isn't it effective about the kometz itself? So first of all, this statement is so opaque. My kamar, what is it saying? So the Gemara says, maybe saying the following: if the kometz is not going to be accepted on the mizbeach because it's pigol, then how can it ever bring anything else to pigol? And since we know that when you bring it on the mizbeach, it makes it pigol, so therefore the kometz itself is going to be accepted on the mizbeach. So my kamashwan. So then, what's the chiddush of ula? If he means to tell us that you're not liable to the kares penalty for eating the kometz, Tanina, we learned that in our Mishnah. Ella must mean. Do you think he's trying to tell us that if the kometz went up on the mizbeach, it doesn't come down? Well, that also we learned earlier in our chapter. Tanina, we learned that earlier. Halon vayote va'atame, and this is going to be a Mishnah later on, but you already referenced in our chapter. If you have something which was left overnight, or something which went out of Beit Zara, or something which was tamei, or if it's something that was brought with the wrong machshava beyond the proper time, beyond the proper place, if they went up on the mizbeach, they should not come down. So we see that explicitly in the Mishnah. So maybe it means Ela Deim Yardu Yahweh. Maybe Ula is telling us that if the Kometz was brought up and it came down, Yahweh, it should go up again. The Ela Deim Yardu Yahweh, that if he brought it down off the Mizbeach, it should go up again. Well, Hanami Tinina, that we also learned. Kishem Shem All Yardu, Kacham Yardu, well, Yahweh. So just like it says explicitly, just like if it went up, you leave it up. So too, if it went down, you leave it down. So Gemara says, no, Ulas Chiddush is Shemeshala B'Hena Or, when the fire took hold of the Kometz. So if that was the case, then even if it went down, it goes back up again. Gemara says, Hanami Amra Ula Chadazim. Ula already told us that. Amar Ula, when do we say that if it goes down, it doesn't go back up? That's where the fire didn't touch it yet. Or if the fire touched it, it should go up again. So if that's the case, why is he saying this again as it relates to the Kometz? When it's for a the Kometz is all these pieces of fire with all these different pieces. Maybe I wouldn't say that. Until he tells us that's the case. Amar Biachai Helkach High Kometz Pigel to Palge Machas Ara. So therefore, if you have a Kometz of Pigel, which half was on the ground, so he extends the Chiddush even more, says Ravachai. Sometimes when they say it's Ravachai, maybe it's a reference to a much later statement of the Gaonim. Maybe it's Ravachai Gaon. But anyway, so Ravachai says, therefore, the halacha is if you have a Kometz of Pigel, that you didn't even bring the whole thing up, that only Palgas Machas Ara. Part remained on the ground. And the other part went up on the Mizbeach, and once the fire went on it, we can bring up the entire thing on the Mizbeach, even with Chatchila. Amar Yitzchak, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, if you bring pigol, noser, and tame on the altar, haka isur mehen. The prohibition is departed from them. What a tremendous idea. Once pigol is nothing more prohibited than pigol, but once it goes up on the Mizbeach, haka isura. The prohibition is departed. Amar Avachesda, Mari Dechi. What a statement. Mizbeach mikvah tahara. Do you think the Mizbeach is the altar is a purifying mikvah? Amar B'zera shemashal ben aor. The fire took hold of it, so therefore it becomes purified. I want to say that this daf is being learned on the day after the Yortzeit of the Eish Kodesh, Holy Piazetzner Rebbe. And he's the one who taught us the fire. The fire is a purifying process. Masav Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Bisna, Tumasu Acherim Omrim, Tumasu Olav. The Acherim say, it says, Tumasu Olav, when it says in the pasuk, it means Misha Tuma Parachos Mimenu, meaning to say that something which Tuma can depart from, Yatza Basar, Shein Tuma Mefrachas Mimenu. So this excludes meat which Tuma does not depart from it. Meaning to say, we're going to get to the whole brisa, but the brisa is analyzing the pasuk. If somebody will eat meat from the shlamim that was tamei, he gets kares. But tumas while it's tumas on it means either while the meat is tamei or while he's tamei. So the Bryce cites proofs to tell us, since it could be either one, the Bryce is giving us proofs that means where the person is tamei. And one of these proofs is from the Acherim who say, but tumasu olav means that the person is of a nature that the tumah can depart from it, unlike the meat. So that's what it is. Misha tumor parachas mimenu yotza basar shein tumor parachas mimenu. And if it's the case that once it goes up on the mizbeach, the tumah departs from it. Hari tumah parachas mimenu. They are the tumah departs from the fire. So maybe it's referring to the korban. So we see from here that Rabbi Yitzchak's proof is not correct. Amarava they mikvah kamrina. The Acherim is saying that the tumah can be removed through immersion in a mikvah, and that excludes the meat. Midday mikvah. It doesn't say mikvah. Amar papa basar shamim maskinam the lo chazi la'akrava. No, we're talking about a case of basar shamim which doesn't get brought on the altar. So therefore, its tumah remains. Ravina gives a different answer. But tumasu olav, meaning say misha tumah parachas mimenu kishu shalem. One of the tumah could depart from him while he's shalem. That's a basar davar shein tumah parachas kishu shalem al kishu chaser. This excludes meat where the tumah doesn't depart from shalem only when he's chaser. Gemara says, "Gufa." Let's analyze this whole brayso. Tumas olav. What does it mean? But tumas agufa custom medaber. It says, when do you get kares? If you yourself are tamei and you eat the karva. But atomer, so but not if it's the tumas basar. So Gemara says, atomer, but tumas agufa. We know the tumas basar. Which one is it? Is it tumas of the person itself or the tumah of the meat? Nemar kan tumaso, nemar lalon tumaso. It says the word tumas in both places. Ma'olam tumas aguf custom medaber. Avkam tumas aguf custom. Talking about tumas aguf. Yossi says a different proof. Hold the Nemar Kachim B'Lashon Rabim, and Nemar Tumah B'Lashon Yachid. It says Kachim in the plural and the Tumah in the singular. The Tumah Sagufa Kosmadaver. So clearly we're talking about the Tumah of the person. Rabbi gives a different proof. Va'achal, the Tumah Sagufa Kosmadaver. Says he eats it. So we're talking about somebody who's Tamei was eating the Tamei meat. Acherim Amar Tumas Alav Misha Tumah Parachas Mena Yatza Basar Shei Tumah Parachas. And the Acherim repeat the proof we said before. Exclude somebody where the something which the tumah does not depart, which is meat. Amar Mar. So now let's analyze this price. Rabbi Omar Achal means betumah sagufa kasmadavar. It refers to somebody who's eating it. That's somebody who's tamei. My master. How do you learn from it? Amar Rava Kol Kra the Lama Farshal Rav Yitzchak Bar Dumi. Any pasuk that's not explained by Rav Yitzchak Bar Dumi, the Chol Matnisa the Lama Farshal is the Iri, and any price that's not explained by Iri, Lama Farsha, is not fully explained. Whole pascha kasav b'lashon nekeva. The Torah begins with the feminine, the siyam b'lashon nekeva, and it concludes with the feminine. Ulashon zachar b'amtza, and the masculine is in the middle. But tumas aguf kasav davar. It's clear that the middle is referring to tumas aguf. So the Gemara says masnisa. So the Gemara gives an example of a brisa, which is the Iri. That unless the Iri explains it, it's not going to be explained. Masnisa, the Tanya, because there's Tana Brisa, in Nemru Kalos, if the lenient ones are mentioned, this Brisa is basically discussing the passage in Vayikra, which explains the prohibitions against eating Kodesh Truma Meiser Sheni while in a state of Tuma. So it says, in Nemru Kalos, if the lenient ones are already mentioned, Lama Nemru Chamuros, why are the stringent ones mentioned? So the pasuk is dealing with Meiser Sheni, which has lenient rules, and with Truma and Kodesh, which have stringent rules. And so if it's dealing with a Tumah acquired through lenient Tumah, like a Sheretz, so why does it have to also deal with the strict ones, like Tumas Mace? So the Gemara says, in Nemru Kalos, I'm a Nemru Chamuros, in Nemru Chamuros, I'm a Nemru Kalos. If it mentions the strict ones, why are the lenient ones mentioned? Gemara's going to explain this. In the Makalas Chamoris, if it just said the lenient ones and not the strict ones, that you get for the lesser penalties, you would get a prohibition. For the stricter ones, you get death. Therefore, it said the stricter ones. If it said the stricter ones and not the lenient ones, I would say you're only liable for the strict ones and not the lenient ones. So the Gemara says, what are these kalos and what are these chamoros? My kalos, my chamoros. Ilema kalos, meiser chamoros truma. If you want to say the lesser prohibitions here are meiser and the stricter ones are truma, yisiomer b'misa. I would have said that for the lesser ones you get death. Hashtanami hab'misa. Even the strict ones were mentioned. This is going to get death. The suvi lo nemar. If one had said hayisio b'misa, would have said that it's death. You can't extend it. Ela kalos. Tumas sheretz, chamuros, tumas meis. So the lesser ones are tumas sheretz, and the stricter ones are tumas meis. Ubemai, and what's it talking about? Iba truma, idi ubemesa. If it's truma, no matter what type of tuma you have, it's death. Kach nemo chamuros. That's what it's telling us. Tibelav. That means that the stranger ones just get a prohibition. Mara says habamisahi. It can't be. They get death. Vidachilas meiser. And if we're talking about eating meiser. And would you say if you eat meiser and tumah you get death? I mean tumah shemer it's ka'asya. It's coming from sheretz and you wouldn't be able to apply that because with tumah. So therefore food, chamuras nami al stringent tuma, you would get death also for the lesser ones. Kach nemu chamura. So therefore, the Torah tells us the stringent tuma, a corpse tuma, was mentioned in the Torah to teach us that even if you're a state of corpse tuma, if you eat meiser, it's just a lot, but it's a lot and not misa. Okay, we'll stop here. This is today's Daf Yomi. Shepayach.